Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic? Let's do it. What's something creepy that happened to you a long time ago that you still think about to this day? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I had a recurring dream in my late teens and well into my 20s about an older dude who was always wearing military uniforms. Mostly it was an all-white uniform, but sometimes it was olive or brown, and at least once it was camo. He never said anything to me, even if I tried to engage him or ask him questions. He just kind of looked at me and smiled. I can recall 5 different dreams he was in, but there may have been more. Kind of a short, stocky guy with white hair and a clean-shaved face, just a calm demeanor. I haven't dreamed of him in over 10 years, but I still wonder what the hell that was all about. When my grandparents passed away, my family moved into their house to help take care of my uncle, who had slightly special needs and had lived there his whole life. I got a lot of creepy vibes in that house and had a lot of nightmares while living there. One evening, I had the worst nightmare ever, which was super realistic. Toward the end of the dream, I saw the scariest demon smiling at me with the blackest eyes, or lack thereof, more like emptiness. Hundreds of razor-sharp teeth curled into a smile, and strange, cracked white skin, almost like bone. The demon somehow conveyed to me that he was going to murder me just by smiling at me. This nightmare made me not want to sleep for weeks out of fear of seeing this thing again. I did not tell my family about this dream. I did not get along with this uncle who we lived with, and I rarely spoke to him unless completely necessary. The next day after that nightmare, he asked me a question. He said, "Hey, do you still have that app on your phone?" The app he was referring to was some stupid phone app for reading EMF. I downloaded the app just for shits and giggles a few weeks prior, because as I said, the house was creepy, and I tried to see if I could pick up any messages from ghosts or demons in the home. I told him, yeah, I still have it. Why? He said, "Oh, I was just wondering, because last night I saw something standing at my doorway." And then I proceeded to describe the exact demon from my nightmare. I was so freaked out, I don't even think I properly responded to him. I told my family about this, and they agreed that something was in the house. None of us slept well the rest of our time there. Luckily, we didn't live in that house for very long before selling it. I still think about that demon from dreams sometimes, and I hope I never encountered that smile again. Also, there's no way my uncle could have known what I dreamt, because like I said, I didn't tell my family about the dream. I fully believe that he saw the same demon in person that I saw in my nightmare. When we were house shopping, we went to this big house surrounded by pretty dense landscaping in the front, bushes mid-thigh and such. We met our realtor and walked through the house for a solid hour or so, then met on the front porch and talked a bit about what we liked, etc. We had parked near some bushes, and the realtor, a petite female, had parked in the driveway. My husband and I got back in the car and continued to chat while the realtor left. Suddenly, about 6 feet away from the passenger door, a man stood up out of the bushes and walked into the house. He didn't look at us or give any indication that he saw us. We called the realtor, who in turn called the owners, who said it was their son, and he doesn't really want us to sell. We ended up not buying that house, and it went off the market shortly after. I still wonder what the hell he was doing, hiding in the bushes, and I'm so glad the realtor left before us. When I was 23 years old, I was on a bike ride and stopped at a park to use the restroom. While I was in the stall, a balding, middle-aged man suddenly stuck his head up over the wall and looked down at me. When he saw me looking back up at him, he looked startled, like he was expecting to see someone else, and immediately got back down and left. I finished up quickly, because I thought something weird was going on, and I had left my bike sitting unlocked outside the restroom door. When I got back out, my bike was still there, but standing right outside the bathroom door was a 12 to 13-year-old boy who I'd never seen before, who looked right at me and struck up a conversation about my bike. Just pointless small talk. I looked around and saw that the creepy old guy was still milling about in the parking lot, watching us talk. I was barely saying anything, basically just going, yeah, huh, and okay. But the kid kept talking to me until the creepy guy gave up and got back in his car and drove off. As soon as the guy's car was out of sight, the kid said something to the effect of, "Thanks, bye," and then waved and walked away. So this one time I was out hunting northern BC on my own. I'm on my quad going down an old trail and I come to the edge of a pond. I look down and there's a bone, nothing unusual. Then I look a bit further and at the end of the deer skull. No biggie. Well, I keep looking and there's bone set after bone set. I counted at least 20 separate sets, along with 2 fresh carcasses. I was in the middle of this boneyard. It's dead silent, and I get this strange sense that something is watching me. I load my rifle and sit and wait a few minutes, but there's nothing. Seriously, the most eerie feeling. I found out later it was most likely a cougar's kill site, and given the amount of bones, it was big and defective. My family and I stayed in Michigan one year with my aunt and uncle who lived there for a short time. It was along a bay, with no super close neighbors, but rental houses within eyeshot. It was a really nice house, but I felt off. I wasn't the only one who felt it. My entire family did. The first night, there was a rental house that had no visitors that week, according to the landlord. But my mom swore she watched lights flicker on and off several times when she couldn't sleep one night and got up around 2 to 3 a.m. Another night, my oldest sister was asleep on an inflatable mattress in the guest room my parents were in. My middle sister and I were on 2 other mattresses right outside the door in the upstairs game room type area. My dad hightailed it out of there and decided to sleep in our RV because he said he felt weird in the house and couldn't relax. Once again, my mom woke up at around 2 to 3 a.m., but because we were trying to wake her up, someone at the side of her bed sang, "Mom, Mom, Mom," over and over again, like we're trying to wake her up. She woke up and said, "What?" But no one was there. She woke up my oldest sister and asked what she needed. My oldest sister was dead asleep, and she had been all night. She checked on my middle sister and me, and we were also sound asleep. Neither of us had gotten up at all night. I think we ended up cutting the trip short and deciding to explore the surrounding town and stay in a hotel instead of staying there. And another night, my aunt and uncle moved soon after. My family still often reference how creepy that house was, but no one has an explanation for what happened. I don't tell this story anymore because it sounds fake. In '96, I was living in this northern Canadian town and working the oil gas rigs as a low-level laborer. I was 20, just starting out in couch surfing, when a friend offered me a windowless basement room in his mom's house, in an unfinished basement. His mom was on disability, and he and his brother sort of ran the house. I set up down there with a second-hand mattress, a little TV, and a fan. I had always considered myself a tough guy. I partied a lot, fought, and was stupid macho bullshit like that, so I wasn't a squeamish young man. Well, after the little while living in that room, I started hearing things. Not external groaning or banging the house shifting or anything like that. What I was hearing was a soft, malevolent chuckling in my ear, like someone whispering laughter over and over again. I thought I was going crazy. There was a book on the shelf in the house, and I had a bunch of favorite books I packed out and around, and they kept falling off the shelf. I'd go up to use the bathroom upstairs and come down. No one had been heard down there. My boys were on the floor. It got so bad, the laughing sound in my ear, that one night I, as a big tough guy, went upstairs and asked my friend if I could sleep on the couch and the floor in his room. I remember being surprised because he didn't make fun of me. This was a town where a good guy was going to the strip club and then beating the shit out of someone outside in the snow. The next day he said Brent couldn't sleep down there either. He moved out pretty quick. Brent was his cousin, a guy he knew casually. So I went to find him. He was always proper, and he was on the gyno row at the strip club on his days off. He looked at me with dead eyes and said, "Yeah man, that room is effing haunted." I only went back in that room to move my shit out and ended up sharing a place in a trailer park with another buddy. Suicide trigger warning. This happened when I was 7. I was walking downtown with my dad, who was buying a CD. We used to go to the record store and he'd chat music with the workers, and I'd play on the Sega Dreamcast. I remember there was a guy watching me play, and it looked like he was crying. He was just kind of staring at me. Because I was 7 and had vidya, I didn't think much of it. About 20 minutes later, there were a bunch of people gathering outside, so we went out to see what the commotion was about. The guy who was crying was now on top of the roof, standing on a ledge. He screamed, "This is for you, Diane," my name, and jumped. My dad put his entire body over mine to prevent me from seeing it, but the guy who jumped died. I thought about it every day for over 20 years. Skip ahead to about 5 years ago. I'm now at a Christmas staff party, drinking heavily with my team. A guy on said team and I have heartfelt conversation about our pasts, and he tells me he is bisexual. However, he can't and hasn't been with a man in 20 years. He used to date men prior to his girlfriend, but she committed suicide when he wouldn't leave her. My coworker's name is Daniel. He was in the crowd with me. 2 strangers forever changed, but 20 years in the past. This may not be creepy to some, but haunted me for most of my life. I moved into a shared house, and my housemate told me half the house had burned down and been rebuilt, and the ghost of the old man who died in the fire visited him. I've never had any experience with the old man, but when I was half asleep, I'd very clearly feel a cat or 2 jump onto my bed, settle down, and purr. It happened often. It was quite chilled out, and I didn't mind. I would hear the distinctive thump of cat jumping off the bed from time to time, but there was no and never a physical cat there. Once in the house, but in a different bedroom, I had a terrifying lucid dream in which a possum or cat-like hand or claw was coming up from behind inside my bed, clawing my thigh. It hurt so much that I thought it might be growing myself in my sleep, but I woke up unharmed. Months later, I moved out and met a landlord who lived a few doors down to return the keys, etc. I said something like, "It must have been scary when the house burned down and killed your own wife." "Were they living here at the time?" He said, "Oh no, the owner was fine and he got out, but he had about a dozen cats and several of them died in here. I'm pretty sure I was sharing my bed with ghost cats. I'm not sure what the story was with Dream, but I've had a couple lucid dreams in my life, and they've always been incredibly scary." This is kinda stupid, and I've never been one to believe the theory that we're all living in a simulation, but I was driving to the grocery store, and I turned my head to look down a road I usually pass on the way there, and it looked for a split second like a dark void, kinda like if you clip through the bottom of a video game. I blinked, looked again, and it was all normal, just like it had buffered and then loaded. I'm sure it was just a trick on my eyes, but maybe it was more. I go a different way to the store now. 9%. There's a lot of glitches out there, and between doppelgangers and things that were there that were never really there, yeah, it's theoretical for sure, but who knows? What do you think? I woke up next to a woman twice my age that I'd never met before. I was quite shaken up by it, and she harassed me for a while after. Sadly, male victims of R don't really exist in most people's minds. When I told friends, I got a lot of jokes about the scary scratch on my head. Evidently, I had fallen that night, again no recollection, so of course, the story goes, she clobbered me on the side of the head and had her way with me. I've never gone to shot night at a bar since. It still F's with me. Any time when the woman is around. I still work in the service industry. Years later, she sat down at one of my tables. I had to possess it off to someone else. Me and a friend from high school were walking through the woods late one night, just talking shit. We were kinda lost, not too far from home, but not quite sure where we were at the time. All of a sudden, it felt like we'd been walking for hours, almost like we had just walked home at the same time. Kind of a bad explanation, but all of a sudden, we were back on the trail, like a block from his house. My friend aptly said, "Don't you ever feel like you just glitch through the sometimes?" Or something like that. I was like, "Yeah," and we parted ways. I don't know, shit was eerie. We were probably just tired, but I've never experienced that since. Once I was walking home from the bar crossing a local park. I got the most Law and Order SVU fear feeling, no other way to describe it, and immediately turned around and proceeded to get shit-faced, waiting for someone to walk me home because I was not going to go back through there alone. Later on, a serial artist was found to have been targeting my neighborhood for years. I saw his picture later and realized I'd met him before. He'd been asking for tips around the neighborhood because he was thinking about moving there after a divorce. The last two attacks before he was finally caught on a security camera, or something, were on my block 1 mile away, and I live on the first floor. I think about it all the time, not as much for me, but how effed up it was that he was preying on local school children for so long. There was DNA evidence, just untested and lost until one woman fought about it. The system is messed up, and the world is crazy. I'll never forget the day I was at my old apartment complex's pool with my family and seeing a middle-aged dude get real close and comfortable with a random kid who wasn't much younger than me. I was about 7 or 8, so the details are a bit fuzzy, but from what I can remember, the man was in the pool with his arm over the kid's shoulder, asking him where he lived, where he went to school, how old he was, etc. Just a bunch of really weird personal questions. I didn't think much of it. I had just assumed the man was being friendly, but looking back on it, I'm positive that the man was a predator. I can also recall the older sibling leading him away from the man while giving him a disgusted look. Scary shit when you think of what it could have happened if the kid's sibling didn't take me away.